What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Randy here with RTS Mobile Gaming, bringing you a Dynamite video today. In today's video, we are playing the Lord of the Rings Rise to War, and it is day 1 of Season 4. We are doing a Commander Spotlight for Skalhelm, folks. This is the brand new Tier 3 Undead Ring Wraith Commander added here in Season 4 to the Evil Faction. This guy is extremely interesting. The devs have added 3 entirely new skill trees that are not being recycled from other commanders that have interesting and refreshing skills that we're going to talk through, okay? So first things first, drop down to the description, join the Forge Discord today. Let's rock and roll, okay? Now, Skalhelm, ladies and gentlemen, he is an undead commander. He is a ring wraith like we discussed, okay? He is a balanced commander, which means he gains 25 of all stats and 2 skill points at level 20. His stats are very, very balanced. He has 2.26 might per level. His focus is 2.0 per level, and his speed is 1.98 per level. Okay, so his stats are barely balanced. He is the balanced commander, so he's going to have fairly significant stats at max level, as well as really you can go any direction with him, okay? And what I mean by that, we'll get to when we talk about his skills, okay? So, Skalhelm is pictured here with a warg unit, and that is because 2 of his abilities are unique. Well, one of them is unique to him, never before seen in other commanders, and 2 of his abilities basically give bonuses to the wargs, okay? How does that work? Let's take a look. All right, so the first things first, Lord of the Wolves is going to give you a 50% chance to trigger a 40% poison damage when warg units deal damage, okay? It's also going to give all orcs immunity to madness, all right? In addition to that, he has the Beast Taming ability, which gives plus 40 defense to warg units. So you can have 40 defense to wargs and a 50% chance to trigger a 40% poison nuke that bypasses defense. So unless you're fighting against a commander with high alert, this is going to be a pretty substantial damage increase from your wargs, okay? This brings into question, does this trigger off Retaliate? I don't know. We're going to find out. If it does trigger off Retaliate, this could be a very, very interesting build for this commander, okay? Next, we have the Brawling Training. This is going to help Skalhelm's own damage by 21% against melee units. This is going to pair very nicely with his Executioner tree down here in the other R0 section, okay? Executioner is going to give you a total of 18% poison damage ticking per round on each enemy with the Pursuit buff. Okay, once round 5 triggers, so round 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, okay, the last 6 rounds of the fight, he is going to add an additional 18% focus damage to the mix. So you'll be dealing a maximum of 36% elemental damage between the two to all targets on the field with the Pursuit buff. How does that compare to Sauron, right? Sauron's Overload ability gives 72% at max level damage per tick. So it's going to, in rounds 5 through 10, it will be dealing half the damage that Sauron's Overload deals with the Pursuit buff. But it's interesting to see this type of damage coming out, okay? And we don't know how it scales yet with focus compared to Sauron's, okay? However, he gives pretty significant damage bonuses to himself between the Brawler Training and these other couple abilities I'm going to pull up, all right? The next ability that is unique to this gentleman in this particular season, just added this season I should say, is the Raven's Feast. This is going to give all of the units, the enemy units, 15.8% increased damage received for the first 3 rounds. This is modified by the speed stat. So now you can see where I was going with this. You can really go any direction with this commander since he gives huge damage bonus based on speed in the first 3 rounds. It actually makes sense to go a little bit of speed and focus. So he has some interesting theory crafting going on here, which is why I don't know if I like him a whole lot. But he's interesting. He's interesting, and I want to try him out. That's for sure, and test some of these theories. Okay. The next ability he has is the Consequence of Greed. This is going to be a guaranteed madness against all enemies in round 1. All right. Then we have the standard Ring Wraith. This is going to pair very nicely with his ability from Raven's Feast, as well as his abilities from Brawler Training. So between all of these different abilities, you might see Skalhelm dealing 70 to 80% bonus damage in the first 3 rounds. And then that'll drop off and just be 21% plus 30%. So 51% increased damage to melee units for his elemental damage. But he has an opportunity here to compete in the early rounds of the fight with damage output, which is nice to see, okay? Very, very nice to see. And this Raven's Feast will affect the damage the wargs put out, so it's going to really increase the damage of every unit on the field, which is fantastic. The R5 tree, oh, sorry, I didn't talk about it. So Ring Wraith, I don't even really need to talk about this. Ring Wraith, Morgul Poison, blah, Nazgul Screech, blah, whatever, right? If you have points for them, you'll get them. You'll probably end up maxing out Lord of the Wolves. You'll probably end up maxing out Executioner and putting all your leftover points into Ring Wraith. If you're like Respect level 10, you might be able to max out Ring Wraith, but otherwise you're not going to have points to go up into Morgul Poison or Nazgul Screech. Okay? It wouldn't be a bad idea to put 1 point into Morgul Poison just because some of these are debuffs, right? Brawler Training, I don't think it's a debuff, but like the Raven's Feast is going to be a debuff. So some of these are going to be debuffs that can be purged. Ring Wraiths have debuffs, so if you do put 1 point in Morgul Poison to stack against and counter debuffs, that'd be great. All right? The R5 tree I'm not a big fan of. This is the part that I'm not a big fan of. The Dark Ranger looks pretty interesting. It looks like it might have some decent focus damage and poison damage output. However, my complaint is you don't know what you're going to get. Are you going to be inflicting madness on people in round 3, right? Is this an interesting madness ability where you can just put 1 point in? At R5, you put 1 point in, and maybe you trigger this madness if they only have 2 units. Yes, so that might be the value here. If you do get R5, maybe you put 1 point in. I'm not a huge fan of dual blows. I don't know what you're going to benefit from dual blows. He clearly is geared towards a lot of focus damage and poison damage output. So I would say don't go down the trap of getting dual blows and then deliberate strike. Unless you like Respect 25 and you somehow have so many points that you can max all 4 trees. Maybe you like Respect 50, then you can go down in here. Same thing with Deliberate Strike. I feel like you have so many bonuses that are going to help you with elemental damage. It's best to focus on that, okay? So I would personally not go into the R5 tree beyond putting 1 point here just to get the guaranteed madness if the enemy has 2 units, okay? That's it. So that's a summary. Gear-wise, I would probably stick to speed and focus. Speed is going to drastically increase your damage output for the first couple rounds. Sandclaw is pretty good. This is going to be a really, really, really strong weapon for him. Okay? But so is giving bonus damage to your wargs. So you have to really evaluate what you want to do here. Easterling Spear with the Mounted Might is going to be 9% damage to your wargs. It's going to really affect that poison proc, okay? And it's going to give you some decent focus and speed. I mean, you have a lot of options, really. It's an interesting commander, but those are probably my 2 favorite options would be the Easterling Spear with Mounted Might or potentially Sandclaw with the increased poison damage output, okay? You can also run Reckoning with the Fury ability, which gives you plus physical damage output for the first couple rounds. But since you're not really dealing physical damage, I would probably stay away from that. Okay. Or if you want to try the Retaliate build, you could run a Retaliate weapon like Reckoning or Nightfall with Retaliate and be able to test out if that Retaliate triggers a poison damage on the wargs, which would be insane. For the chest piece, we're going to want to go, again, with focus and speed, okay? And if you want to give bonuses to your orcs, maybe you're going to go with Bone Armor, which is might and focus, and gives bonus defense to your orcs. Or you're going to try and get something with focus and speed on it. Not a whole lot of armors have focus and speed that are coming to mind right now. So, the more I think about it, Bone Armor is going to be pretty solid if you're running wargs because the defense is nice and it has some good abilities, okay? So maybe Bone Armor is best in slot for the chest piece. For the helmet, I think hands down the War Helm is going to end up being the best one. If you already have Madness immunity and you decide to get Resolve with the Orcs, now you have Stun immunity, that could be useful. If you're running Retaliate, you don't necessarily need the Stun immunity. So I would say this helmet or maybe the Cask of the Submerged Isle, which does have a little bit of speed on there, and it's going to increase your damage for the first couple rounds. Those are some good options. You can also drop down and grab Bone Mask, right? You can grab Trapper's Hood, focus speed on here with a Madness debuff. A lot of options. He can use a lot of stuff as Undead, okay? But if you're going to run Wargs, the War Helm is probably going to be best in slot. And you can use the Discord ability. If you get Discord on the helmet, you're going to cause the enemies to be maddened for the first 2 turns. Then you don't really need to put points. You can move 7 points out of the R0 tree. You don't have to put any points in Consequence of Greed if you have that helmet with Discord. So if you have the Orc helmet with Discord, the more I think about it, that'd probably be best in slot. Okay? For the accessory, I'm a big fan of Pursuit for the first few rounds, especially because it really complements his ability to increase the damage the enemies receive for the first 3 rounds. So I think the Palantir of Orthanc is probably best in slot. But he also is balanced, so he's going to make good use of the Box of Knowledge with the balance ability, giving him ability to cleanse himself and increase his damage output. Okay? So, those are my recommendations, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you enjoyed this video spotlight for Skalhelm. Like and sub. Love you long time. Randy out.